Hey there everybody, welcome to Auto Bears, and if you're on the lookout for an electric Mini which is larger and more practical than the Cooper, but not as massive as the Countryman, never fear, because the Aceman is here. So as you've probably gathered, the Aceman sits between the smaller Cooper and larger Countryman, but unlike those cars, you can only get it as a full EV. There is no ICE version available. And when it comes to family, this is more closely related to the Cooper because it shares the same underpinnings rather than the Countryman, who shares its underpinnings with the larger BMW X1, hence its gargantuan size. So it's clear to look at the Aceman as more of a larger Cooper than a smaller Countryman. Now, I've had the Aceman for a week and I'm going to answer a couple of big questions. Number one, what's it like? And number two, on paper, this doesn't seem to fare well against its more conventional rivals. So is it a case of not judging a book by its cover? Stick with me to find out. Now, when it comes to the Aceman styling, this is definitely going to divide opinion as it is a true Marmite car. You're either going to love it or hate it, but me personally, I bloody love it. I think Mini have hit the nail on the head with this one. Now granted, it does look like a four-door version of the Cooper, but it looks more aggressive, more angular, more purposeful in its stance, and as a result, this definitely warrants a second look when you see it on the street. I love the sporty elements as well. We got the big rear spoiler and rear diffuser. Granted, they are for show, but it hasn't lost out on any of that miniatureness that we've come to see on this latest generation of Minis. We got the round and very distinctive daytime running lights, which give you a little dance when you unlock and lock the car. Same goes for the rear tail light design, where you can actually change what is on display whilst you're driving. We have got the octagonal grille up front. Granted, we haven't got the vibrant silver because this is the sport trim. And another thing I really do love about the Aceman is that every time I've seen one, whether it be in a video or a review, it's been red, but I've picked this one up in Legend Grey because it is the sport trim, and I think it looks absolutely stunning. People have complimented the actual paint and just said it works on the car. Also, what really works are those 19-inch John Cooper Works alloy wheels. They are an optional extra, but I think they look absolutely lovely, and I do love the contrast of chrome with the kind of Legend Grey and also the black body panel and inserts on the car. But you let me know what you think of the Aceman styling. Are there any better cars looking in the class, or do you think this particular car looks really good? Let me know in the comments section below. But I do personally think that Mini have hit the nail on the head with this one. This is, I think, a gorgeous looking electric hatchback. And on that note, I think it's time that we leave the exterior of the Aceman and we see what it's like on the inside. Sat in the front of the Aceman, you are greeted with a really comfortable, nicely designed and very well equipped interior, and that's because I've got the level 3 pack added to this particular car. And I can confirm that this is a very comfortable place to be, because my first journey in the Aceman was from Mini HQ in Farnborough all the way up to Scunthorpe, where I live, which is 194 miles. So I can definitely confirm that it is a very comfortable place to be, even on the motorway. And then when it comes to getting in and out of the Aceman, it is actually really easy because you have a slightly higher driving position than you would do in the Cooper. And I wouldn't class the Aceman as an SUV, I would call it a more traditional hatchback. So that's just something to be aware of. And if you have got any kind of mobility issues and you don't want to kind of bend down to get into the car, then I would recommend looking at the Mini Countryman. But just be aware that is a massive car in comparison to the Aceman. I'll mention as well that you don't have grab handles here for the driver, but you do for the front passenger, and these seats are actually really comfortable. They do hold a big bear like me in place. I do love the quality. I think it is leatherette along with the fabric, and I love the design as well. Now, because I've got the level 3 pack, it means I've got full electric adjustment and adjustable lumbar support. I've got electric adjustment for my front passenger, but you don't have that lumbar support there. I've also got heated front seats, and my driver's seat does come with a massage function. And then we got the steering, which has both rake and reach adjustment, so getting the perfect driving position is easy. And in the Mini Aceman, It is a really lovely driving position, and we'll go on to that in a little bit. And then when it comes to interior quality, this is also a big plus, but it also feels very familiar to this kind of latest generation of Minis, because we have got this recycled polyester here on the dash. We've got it on the doors as well. I'm a bit disappointed that on top of the doors, yeah, it is hard, scratchy plastic. I would like that to be soft, but that's just a minor criticism. But we have got some nice premium materials here, especially when it comes to storage. And we've got this kind of unique design here where you want to store your phone. There is quite a retro feel in here, just like the Countryman and also the Mini Cooper I drove last year, because it is dominated by the infotainment system. But we've got these little retro controls here, which I'll mention in a little bit. And I do love the little touches as well, especially like things like the contrasting stitching. We've got this little kind of fabric strap here underneath the steering, and also a leather strap here on the dash, which is very quirky. So yeah, when you get yourself sat here in the front of the Aceman, you do find that it is a really lovely place to be, jam-packed full of kit. As I said, I have got the level 3 pack, but yeah, the driving position is just spot on. Cubby spaces in the Aceman are actually pretty good, but if you were to compare it to a more traditional rival, they'd probably have more space throughout. However, being a Mini, yes, you are going to have to make some sacrifices because these are technically lifestyle cars. Now, the door pockets are actually of a decent size and shape. You can get a medium-sized bottle of drink in there, but they're not lined with any fabric, so loose items will rattle around a bit. And then here on the kind of center console area, we do have this tray that kind of runs from up front between the driver and front passenger, and it is rubber lined, but it is kind of separated and divided up. So up front, we've got your wireless charging pad along with 2 USB-C charging inputs. Just behind there, we have got your 2 cup holders where we have got your vibrant silver ring. And just like I experienced with the Countryman, there's no plastic grippers in there, so I do sometimes get a little bit worried that if I got a tall drink in there that it might kind of rock or possibly fall out of the cup holder. So that's just something to be aware of there, but it does kind of dig in a little bit, so you can see there's a bit of a recess where it should hold your drink in place. Then a little bit further back we have got this little kind of cubby with a little fabric toggle, and if I grab it, it does unveil a little bit of extra storage space. Again, it is rubber lined, and just like the Countryman, you kind of get the impression that this should be removable, but no, it is fixed, and I do like the fact it has got Mini there just kind of embossed into it. And as you can see, I have got this little kind of fixed armrest here, so it hasn't got any storage features there. And then finally we've got the glove box. Well, yes, it is a bit of a mini glove box. I mean, the book pack itself is not the largest and it doesn't take up too much space, but yeah, when compared to more traditional rivals, they will have larger glove boxes. But like I said, if you are going for a Mini, you know that these are lifestyle cars, so you know there have to be some sort of sacrifices made, especially when compared to some of its rivals. But I will say I've had no major issues when it comes to cubby spaces in the Aceman. Now, when it comes to physical controls here in the Aceman, like Minis of this latest generation, they're very few and far between, with a lot of the controls being done via the infotainment system. So on this little cluster here on the center console, we have got a little rocker switch there for your volume control, but it does set off my OCD because the little on-off symbol does turn when you turn that switch. So I like to kind of have it pointing upwards, and I will slap somebody's hand away if they look to adjust the volume. I'll do it via the steering wheel. Then we've got a little rocker switch there for your experiences or your drive mode select. We've got what looks like a key that's already kind of been put into the ignition, and it actually is to turn the car on and off. Now, I will say when you get into the Aceman, it does kind of come to life, but to set off, you need to put your foot on the brake and then turn that key. And then next to it, we've got another rocker switch, which is your gear select, with a physical button to put the car in park. And then just below there, we have got a couple of shortcut buttons there for the front and rear demisting, your hazard lights, 360 cameras, and we've also got a button there to adjust some of the kind of driver aids, particularly things like radar guided cruise control, or if you want to engage the auto hold. So that's quite nice that you got a little shortcut button there. And what I also like is when you press it, it will come up on the screen, but if you press it again, it goes back to the previous screen, so back to what you previously had on display. So that's something I really do like. Now on the steering wheel, which I do love the shape and size, it has got a nice chunky feel about it. On the left hand side, we have got your radar guided cruise control. controls. And then on the right hand side we have got your voice, media and communication controls, as well as a little rocker switch to do the head-up display, and also a dedicated switch as well that you can assign certain tasks to. But I will mention you need to have a Mini account and be set up on the Mini app, as well as having a profile on the car. So that's just something to be aware of there. And then we have got your buttons here on the right hand side for your windows and your mirror adjustment. And a little bit lower down we've got your lock and unlock, which is tucked away where the door handle is. So yeah, when it comes to physical buttons here in the Aceman's cabin, just like other Minis, they are few and far between, but they are, I think, ergonomically sound in the way that they've been kind of set up, and it is actually really easy to use when on the move. And finally, we've got the infotainment system. So just like other Minis of this latest generation, it is a 9.6-inch OLED display. The clarity is absolutely brilliant. I think it's very clear, easy to use, the responsiveness is there, and even when you've got the 360 cameras, the clarity on the screen I think is one of the best. It's something I've been really impressed with. Now you do have things like Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, they are wireless as well. But just like I experienced with the Countryman last year, it doesn't take up the whole screen. There's only like a square area that it kind of covers, and it can be a little bit fiddly to use when on the move. And the same can be said for the actual main kind of menu system. It really is a case of set up before you set off, because you can be bombarded when you go onto the main menu screen by a lot of options. But what I like with Mini and also with BMW is they have kind of broken down these menus into sections, so you can look at things like media, driver assistance, you kind of, you know, all the convenience features. They can all be set up and make it very easy to kind of go through those individual menus there. But like I said, I would definitely recommend setting up before you set off, because it can get a little bit fiddly. And I would recommend, if you've got a front passenger with you, just for them to help you out so you can concentrate on driving. And then finally, we have got a head-up display on this particular car because we've got the level 3 pack, but you get the HUD with the level 1 pack, and it is an absolute joy. It's really clear in its presentation. It gives you your speed and everything. And also with the kind of augmented reality you get with the level 3, it does mean that when you're approaching any twisty roads, and particularly roads that perhaps you've never driven on before, it does prepare you for them. It does let you know that they are approaching. So that's quite a nice quirky feature there. So yeah, when you're sat here in the front of the Aceman, it is a really lovely, comfortable place to be. I do like some of the styling features as well. Like I mentioned, the little fabric strap here, the leather strapping here as well, and also the handle for the doors. It's like a big one-piece unit, so it does feel quite nice and chunky to hold on to. The only thing I would say is that the actual door handle is located a little bit lower down, and it's covered for the most part by my knee. So I have to remember to kind of move my leg in order to kind of gain access to it. So I'd love to see Mini in the future perhaps put the handle itself kind of incorporated into this section here, and that would be really easy, and also ergonomically in the way it fits to open the door. But that's just a minor quibble. And on that note, I think it's time that we leave the front of the Aceman and see what it's like for rear passengers. Sat in the back of the Aceman, as you can see, space is, definitely not a strong point back here, but I am actually quite comfortable. Now, when it comes to getting in and out of the back of the Aceman, I will mention that you don't have any grab handles, but the doors do open nice and wide. However, I had to do a little bit of manoeuvring in order to get myself in this seat. Now, that driver's seat is set to my driving position. I'm 5'7" tall and 5'7" wide, and as you can see, knee room is at a premium, but I can tuck my feet underneath the driver's seat, so that is something. And actually my head is not rubbing up against the roof lining, so that is another positive. However, if you are 6 foot tall, you're definitely going to struggle back here. So I definitely recommend for adults perhaps a short journey, for kids a medium, possibly going up to a long length one depending on their age. Now, speaking of kids, I definitely recommend getting 2 in the back here. The third would probably be uncomfortable because of that very narrow middle seat, and also you've got a transmission hump to navigate over. We have got ISOFIX supports on the outer seats, and they have got these little plastic covers to make it really easy to affix a child seat. And also that we have got ISOFIX support on the front passenger seat, so that is again really handy. And then when it comes to cubby spaces, I'm going to say it's okay back here. We have got some I'll just say door pockets. You can't put any bottles of drink in there. They're more for like smaller items. We have got your aeroplane style pockets on the backs of the front seats. We have got a single cup holder here with some little kind of grippers next to them, and it is rubber lined, so that is something. But we don't have a center armrest, which is a bit disappointing. And then when it comes to features, well, we got 2 USB-C charging inputs, and the thing that kind of annoys me a little bit about them is they look like an afterthought, because they're just kind of, I don't know, they're just plonked there. So I would love to see some sort of, I don't know, innovation in regards to the charging inputs there, but at least we have got 2 of them. And then finally, we have got the windows. They are of a nice size and shape. They are tinted as well, and they do open all the way down also, so that is a bit of a bonus. Plus, we have got an extra window there in the C-pillar, so there is a bit more light coming through. Not to mention this gigantic sunroof, which is actually part of the Level 2 pack, along with the tinted windows and the Harman Kardon sound system, which is just ace. So yeah, being sat here in the back of the Aceman for adults, definitely a short journey, and we are starting to see that kind of other element to that mini-ishness coming through into the Aceman. So when compared to more, again, traditional rivals like a Kia EV3 or a Skoda Elroq, yeah, this is going to fall quite short. But on that note, I think it's time that we leave the rear seats and we see what the boot is like. Opening the boot of the Aceman presents you with 300 litres of space, which, yes, on paper does fall quite a bit short of its more conventional rivals, but it is one of the sacrifices you have to make when you opt for a lifestyle car. Now, when you got the boot open, you are greeted with actually a nice wide square load area. You wouldn't be able to put anything like a large suitcase in there, but definitely a couple of carry-ons, a couple of weekend bags, or perhaps a week's shopping. So it should be ideal for that. Now, the boot lip itself is actually quite high, and also there's a boot lip to navigate over, so I wouldn't recommend it for dogs to jump in and out of, or if you are going to load any heavy items like a wheelchair or mobility scooter. But it's not devoid of features. We do actually have a 12-volt socket. We have got a variable boot floor with plenty of underfloor storage to put your charging cables. I will say what's disappointing is that there's no frunk on the Aceman, so I'd like to see that remedied for perhaps the facelifted version. But what I like as well is that if you do decide to put the rear seats down, you have a completely flat load area, and also the parcel shelf will go underneath the boot floor, so you don't need to leave it at home. So that's a nice kind of positive to the Aceman, and it does redeem a couple of extra points for itself. But yes, when it comes to the numbers game, the Aceman just falls short and can't compete with its main rivals. But do you know what? I think it's time we now put the lid down of the boot, take it out on the road, and see if the Aceman can redeem some more points out there. So once you start driving the Mini Aceman, first impressions are really positive. Now, it is a very comfortable and easy car to drive, but it doesn't take you long to realise that this is a fun car to drive as well, and that's not something you can say about a lot of electric vehicles. Now, when it comes to visibility, because you sit a little bit higher up than the Cooper, you do feel like you've got a bit more of a commanding view. So I have got a wonderful view of the road ahead. Granted, it's probably not as good as that X1 in front of me, but what I like as well is that we've got these bulges on the bonnet, so I can actually judge where the front of the car is, because it has got quite a slabbed front end. It doesn't kind of slope down like a lot of other ground up EVs. Also, with this car having the level 3 pack, I have got 360 cameras and all-round parking sensors to make parking an absolute doddle, so that is a bonus. Now, the A-pillars are quite thick and chunky, but surprisingly I've not found myself looking around them at any junctions or roundabouts. The wing mirrors are of a lovely shape and size, and I have got blind spot monitoring as well. And then when I look over my shoulder, I do find that the C-pillar is a little bit thicker than what I would expect on a Mini, but it's not terrible. And then rear visibility is actually really good. I've got no obstructions from the headrests, and it's actually really good as well when it comes to parking. The one thing that has stood out for me is the B pillar right next to me. It is quite thick and it can create a little bit of a blind spot if perhaps you need to look around, especially on the other side. There is one junction near where I live where I have to kind of navigate between the B pillar and the seat in order to see what's back there. So that's just one thing to be aware of. But yeah, once you start driving the Aceman, it's really comfortable, really easy to drive, and you know quite early on it's going to be fun as well. And that is a massive positive in an EV. Now, when it comes to trim levels in the Aceman range, just like other Minis, you've got this kind of layering system that you can build up in order to create your perfect Mini. So the first level is your battery size and performance. So you've got the entry level E with the smaller battery, the SE, which is what I've got here, and the JCW, and they both have the larger battery. And also the JCW comes with more performance. You then have your kind of body style that you can put on top of that. So you have the Classic, the Exclusive, and then the Sport again, which is what I've got here. Hence this Aceman looks, well, really sporty. You can then do things like choose your exterior paint color, alloy wheel design, and then you add your option packs, which basically come down as levels. And there are 3 levels to choose from, and yes, I've got level 3 on this car. Now I will say that this particular car, which the spec is actually in the description below, is over £42,000, which might be a bit of a worry for some people because A, it is quite expensive, and B, it is over that £40,000 threshold, which means you jump into the higher road tax bracket. So along with the spec of this particular car, I have put my kind of recommendation if you want to get the most out of your Aceman, but trying to keep it under £40,000. But of course, if you don't really care about hitting that £40,000 threshold and you want to have everything, then by all means, go for the likes of the JCW where you get more performance. However, I will say with this SE, I haven't really been wanting for more power. And then you can look at things like the Sport trim and then just go to town with the level 3 pack and extra alloy wheels or exterior paint color. But yeah, I think for a lot of people, especially when it comes to kind of the Aceman's competitors or more traditional competitors, keeping this under £40,000 will be kind of an important factor for you. Now, when it comes to powering the Aceman, as I just mentioned, there are 2 battery sizes available depending on which trim level you go for. So if you go for the E, you get the smaller battery, but if you go for the SE, which is what I've got here, or the JCW, you get a larger battery, but you get more performance, and the JCW gets even more than this SE. So I am going to put everything on screen now for you so you can compare, but essentially if you go for the entry level E, you will get a 42.5 kilowatt hour battery. And then if you go up to the SE and the JCW, that increases to a 54.2 kilowatt hour battery. Now performance, I'm going to say is, well, for this SE is actually really good. Now if you go for the E, you do get 181 brake horsepower, 290 Newton meters of torque, a range of up to 192 miles, which, yes, okay, it's not the best when compared to rivals. And then you've got a 0 to 60 time of around 7.9 seconds, which is actually pretty brisk, I will say. But with this SE, which is what I've got here, I have got 215 brake horsepower, 330 Newton meters of torque, a range of up to 251 miles, and I'll mention what I can get in a moment, and a 0 to 60 time of 7.1 seconds. And then with the top of the range JCW, you get 255 brake horsepower, 350 Newton meters of torque, a range that drops a little because you got that extra performance of up to 242 miles, but a 0 to 60 time of just 6.4 seconds. So that is kind of hot hatch territory, and yeah, will be very brisk for everyday driving. But I will be honest, I've not really needed it. This SE has given me all the performance and power that I've needed. Now I will mention with all variants, the power goes through to the front wheels. There's no all-wheel drive version available. And as a result, yes, if you do suddenly put your foot down, you can get a little bit of wheel spin, but it's not anywhere as bad as some other cars I've driven that are front wheel drive. So if you drive it in a relaxed manner, you'll have no issues whatsoever. And there is actually a system in place if it is, say, damp or if it's icy, where it will kind of reduce the amount of power going down to the wheels, so therefore you can get a nice easy kind of set off from a standstill. But when it comes to range, realistically, with this SE and that range of just over 250 miles, you will realistically, I think, get around 210. Now, I did drive this back from Farnborough to Scunthorpe, where I live, and it's about 194 miles. And I did work out I was going to get about 204, but I wasn't going to risk it. I was going to kind of charge up a little bit prior to getting home. So getting over 200 miles, I think, is not too bad. I think in the summer, when the temperature does get a lot warmer, it should increase. But yes, there are rivals out there that do give you more range for the money. However, I don't see this as a traditional car. I see this as a lifestyle car. It's a niche car. It's something you go for because you want to show off to people that you've got a Mini. And that's kind of the main thing about this car. Now, when it comes to brake regeneration and charging with the Aceman, again, on paper, yes, it's going to be classed as okay, but not as competitive, again, as some of its more conventional rivals. But because of this type of car, I wouldn't really have an issue with it. Now, if you go for the E, if you go for the smaller battery, it's 75 kilowatts of charging that's capable, and if you go for the SE or the JCW, that increases to 95 kilowatts. So when it comes to 10 to 80%, you are looking at around 31 minutes for both battery sizes, which on the face of it isn't really that bad. 31 minutes should be, well, about 10 minutes longer than a lot of its rivals, and that's not really a massive factor. But again, I wouldn't be buying this car if I was doing lots of motorway miles. I would be buying this because, well, for my day-to-day life, I drive to work and back, I do shopping, I might do the occasional long trip, but if I do, I know I'm not going to be stuck at a charger for too long. And then when it comes to brake regeneration, this is actually a positive in the Aceman. So there are 3 strengths to choose from. There's light, medium and strong, and you activate it by just going into B mode with the gear selector. And when it comes up with B, you got 3 little dashes next to it to let you know what strength it's been set at. So that's actually a really nice feature, and I would say it is proper one pedal driving. It has got a nice strength to it. On occasion I have had to kind of just give it a little bit of assistance with my foot over the brake pedal, but what I like as well is that when you are driving at a low speed, it does bring you to a complete stop. So that's something I do like on the Aceman. There's no slow crawling at like half a mile per hour, so I think a lot of people will appreciate that. So yeah, when it comes to the charging and the brake regeneration on the Aceman, yes, again, on paper, it can't compete with a number of its rivals, but because of the type of car this is, doesn't really matter. Like I said, you're not buying this because you're doing loads of motorway miles. You're not doing 20,000 miles a year. Now, just to put on top of the brake regeneration and charging, I do want to quickly mention efficiency, because this is a very strong point for the Aceman. Now, since charging, I am averaging around 4.3 miles per kilowatt hour. So I'm actually really impressed with that, and it does beat what Mini claim. They claim around 4.1. So that's something I really am impressed with in the Aceman. And it does mean as well, if you drive in a relaxed manner, you should reap the rewards of that. I have found driving on the motorway and then kind of driving through town, it does try and eke out extra miles for you. So I do really like that in the Aceman, and I am really impressed with that efficiency. Now, when it comes to the Aceman's ride and refinement, this is a big plus for the car. Now, I will mention I have got the upgraded JCW alloys. They are 19s, and you know what? I've had no issues with them. So, as you can expect with a Mini, it has been set up to be a fun, sporty car. So it is going to be on the firm side, but here's the thing. It deals with the bumps and imperfections really well. I am driving through the little village near where I live, where I know the roads are horrible, but Yes, some of the booms, some of the vibrations do come into the cabin, but for the most part, this deals with it in such, I'm going to say, a mature way. It's like it acknowledges that there are bumps and imperfections and big potholes and manhole covers on the road like this one, and you hear it for the most part, but you don't really feel it, and if you do, it's not half as bad as a lot of cars out there. This is a genuine surprise, and it is an absolute joy. Yes, granted, some of my wobbly bits are wobbling, but I am not uncomfortable. I know if I was in other cars in this segment, maybe something like a Cupra Born, for example, it would be a bit more movement inside. These seats as well do an amazing job taking a lot of that kind of vibration out from the outside, and I am just really impressed with that. And also as well, when you kind of speed up and you're going at motorway speeds, this thing just settles down and becomes a brilliant motorway cruiser. Yeah, I am massively impressed with the ride quality of the Aceman, especially with the fact I've got 19-inch alloy wheels on this particular car. And now I'm about to go from 30 miles an hour up to 60, so we can talk about refinement, which at low speed is a real positive as well. But as we get ourselves up to 60, it is a very refined car. Now, believe it or not, I don't have a huge amount of road noise or tyre roar coming into the cabin. It's actually wind noise off the A-pillar, and that's about it. Now, granted, yes, because I got those larger alloys, if I do drive on a rougher or poorer road surface, yes, you do get tyre roar coming in, but it's not as intrusive as I was expecting it to be. Also, I've got the gorgeous Harman Kardon sound system that you get with the level 2 pack, and that's just been an absolute joy to listen to, and again just makes a long journey in the Aceman just an absolute joy. It's an absolute pleasure. Like, I'm driving at 60 now. Yes, I can feel the firmness in the suspension. I did feel that little jolt come through, but again, it wasn't uncomfortable. This has been a genuine highlight for the car, and something I've been really impressed with. And I've just, well, my first journey back in the Aceman was 194 miles, and I loved every mile of it. I really did. So yeah, ride and refinement in the Aceman, spot on. I am genuinely that impressed by it. So what about the Aceman's handling? Well, firstly, I do love the shape and size of the steering wheel. It is nice and chunky, but feels really good in your hands. I love the little John Cooper Works badging on the bottom, along with the fabric strip, as I mentioned, to go kind of in line with that leather on the dash. Now, here's the thing. The handling is just lovely. Now, I've got it in what would be classed as normal mode, but the Mini call it core, and the steering is a little bit lighter than I was expecting. I was expecting to be kind of a car you want to grab by the scruff of the neck, but I still feel connected to the front wheels. I still feel like I know what they're doing, and I am getting that kind of that feedback, or more feedback, that I would get from other electric cars, especially ones that are just family friendly and sensible SUVs. But even though it's a little bit kind of lighter than I was expecting, it's absolutely perfect for every day, and you know what the front wheels are doing. That is something I really do appreciate. And also, because of the way that the bonnet is shaped, you can as well judge where the car is in regards to kind of relation on the road. And it does mean that if you were to take this to a track, although I doubt you ever would, you could have an absolute laugh with this. You would really enjoy it. And that's just in core mode, that's just in normal mode. What we need to do in a second is just put it into sport or go-kart and see what it's like there. Okay, so let's put the Aceman into go-kart mode or sport mode, there'll be a woohoo. There's my woohoo. And straight away, when I put my foot down, it is instant. As soon as you tap on it, you've got that instant acceleration that you would get from an EV. And then when you turn in, yes, the steering is more heavy. There's more weight in there. But I don't feel like I'm in a video game. I know what the front wheels are doing. I am getting feedback as well. Now, it's not the kind of traditional feedback you get from an old ICE car, but this rewards you in a way that so many other electric cars do not. And also, because of the way the suspension has been set up, it actually has very little in the way of roll or lean. There is that tiny bit there, but it feels so composed, and it is genuinely a fun car to drive. This is an absolute hoot, and I do love the noises when you put your foot down. But not only that, you don't have to go into sport mode to have fun. Even in core or even in eco mode, it will reward you, and it's perfect for everyday driving as well. This is a genuinely fun electric car to drive, and I do absolutely love it. The only thing I will say is you do get some torque steer coming through the steering, so that's another kind of old school feel as well. But there are not many EVs out there that can give you this kind of rewarding drive. Not for this price tag, definitely. The brakes are another positive. There's a really nice feel to them, and a genuine, oh yes, I can just judge them perfectly. Whether that be around town or an emergency stop, they've got real nice stopping power about them. So yeah, when it comes to the ride and refinement and the handling of the Aceman, once again, Mini, you've hit the nail on the head. This is an absolute hoot. So with my time in the Aceman, what have been some of the highlights and some of the little niggles I need to let you guys know about? Well, highlights, I will definitely say ease of use. As soon as you get into the Aceman, it kind of partially comes to life, and then with a turn of that built-in key, the car comes to life for you, and it's just very easy to kind of get in and go in the car. You do feel like, yeah, it doesn't take too long to get acquainted with it. I will say the driver assist systems, obviously you need to go for the level 3 pack, really are lovely. Now with the radar guided cruise control, something I love, and it's doing it right now, is it's showing me the road and kind of the quite sharp twists and turns, and it lets me know how far away they are. Now that's definitely going to come in handy if you are driving on an unfamiliar road. Also, with the radar guided cruise, something I really do like is that when you have it activated and you are approaching a different speed zone, so let's say for example you're going from 60 miles an hour to 30, it will ask you to press the set button, so it kind of presets the car to go to that speed. But not only that, it will get to that speed as you hit the sign. That's something I really do like. Now I have seen that before on other brands, I'm not going to mention them, but basically you have to go past the speed sign for you to activate it. So the fact that I can go from 60 to 30 and actually hit 30 just as I'm going through is actually something really good, because where I live, a lot of the police like to kind of hide out where there's that change in speed, so they'd like to catch some motorists off guard. So that's just something to be aware of there with the radar guided cruise, and it is a real highlight in the car. Then we've got things like the Harman Kardon sound system. That is an absolute joy. The looks of the car as well. I think this looks bloody brilliant. It is a really handsome car, and the proportions are just right. Now in terms of niggles, I mean, I would say I'd like to see kind of a bit of an increase in interior quality. I would like to see this be soft squishy plastic so I can rest my arm on top. But other than that, some of the ergonomics, like I said with the door handles, I'd like them to see adjusted so you can have it in this big chunky handle. How they haven't done that is a bit is a bit of a question mark on that one. That is quite unique how they didn't go that way with it, considering it's kind of right there and ready to go. Driving the Aceman at night. The interior lighting, the mood lighting is really lovely. So there are LED projectors behind the infotainment screen, and they project onto the polyester dash. That looks really cool, and it does change depending on the experience that you're in or drive mode that you're in. But also up here on this roof, there's actually, it lights up, and again it will change color depending on what experience is there. So the indicators. So because I got the infotainment screen, the indicators are at the top, but when you got the head-up display, they're not on there. I would like to see the indicators on there, because even when you indicate and you got your speedo there, you still have to look there just to double check that your indicator is kind of engaged. So that's another thing to definitely just kind of work on, BMW, to get that moved over to there. I'm sure that could just be a software update. What else is there? What else is there? I think that's it. This has been an absolutely bloody brilliant car, and I have really, really enjoyed it. And I think on that note, let's move on to the conclusion. So, what are my thoughts on the new Mini Aceman? Well, I asked two big questions at the beginning of this review. What is it like? And is it a case of don't judge a book by its cover? Because when you look at all the stats and figures for the Aceman compared to its more conventional rivals, it almost feels like you shouldn't look at this car. So, to answer the first question, the Aceman is an absolute hoot when it comes to ride, refinement, handling, looks. Many have got it spot on. The driving position, the space up front, yeah, I couldn't ask for any more. Granted, yes, on paper, it is flawed. It hasn't got the rear passenger space to compete with rivals, and the boot is quite small. However, it's a Mini, so therefore it's a lifestyle car, and you're going to have to make those sacrifices if you want to have a Mini on the driveway. So, the second question. Yes, you definitely shouldn't judge a book by its cover, because this is genuinely a brilliant car. In terms of actual miles per mile, this beats most of the competition, if not all of the competition. Now, when I see journalists put this car up against rivals, they're going up against Skoda Elroqs and new Kia EV3s, which I think is unfair to the Aceman. This should be going up against Cupra Borns, Volvo EX30s, where you kind of, when you delve into those cars, you find that infotainment systems are really complicated. You find that there are no buttons in the cabin. Yes, you can have a nice, really lovely, luxurious interior, but if it's not functional, then it's almost counterintuitive. Those are the cars that the Aceman should be going up against, and I would, personally, I would have this over the Volvo, the Cupra Born, and I hate to say it, but I would probably look to have this over an EV3 and Elroq. At no point have I kind of thought to myself, I need to have something bigger when I've had this car. This suits my lifestyle down to the ground, and that's the thing. Your lifestyle. Because, yes, you can get a car with 400 miles, but how often do you do 400 miles? If you do that in a week, then yes, by all means, get one. But if you only do to work and back, do some shopping, go pop over and see your friends and have a chat and a pint, this is perfect. And you've got something that looks, I think, incredibly cool. So yeah, the Mini Aceman, I really love it. I think Mini have done an amazing job. Yes, for the next generation, I'd love to see improvements with the range, with the charging speed. But if you haven't got the lifestyle for it, then don't go for it. But for most people, this will be absolutely fine. and you're just worrying about things that are on paper. When you have this and you live with it, you'll be absolutely fine. Definitely take a test drive. I can't recommend this car highly enough. I absolutely love it. And I think you will too. So everyone, I hope you've enjoyed my review of the new Mini Aceman. Of course, don't forget to like, don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell notifications icon to let you know when I, Dave the Auto Bear, bring out a new video. If you've got any questions about the Aceman and my time with it, please put them down in the comment section below and I'll do my utmost to answer them. And of course, don't forget to follow on social media, on X, Instagram, Facebook, etc. for more additional content. But yeah, I really absolutely love the Mini Aceman. I really do. This could be at the moment one of my cars of the year. And I think you do have to take a test drive in it. You have to experience it to see how much fun it really is. And I do think for a lot of people, there's a weird kind of fear-mongering going on in the background, and it's unjustified. I would be so happy if I had one of these. I really would. And I do honestly think a lot of you would be as well. So please go out, have a drive, and I think you'll be impressed. And on that note, I wish you all a wonderful day, and I'll catch you all in the next video. So take care, everyone, and bye-bye.